Hi, I'm Kyle Bleeker, the pastor of Friends Church in Tustin, and I'm glad you're checking out some of our online content today. Along with our in person gatherings, which are every Sunday at 10 a.m., we have a number of different ways to help people get connected to our community and discover what God, the Bible, and Jesus have to do with your life. So check out our website to learn more or send our team a message directly using one of the links so we can help you find your way. Thanks again for taking the time. Now, on to this week's message. Okay, thank you so much, you two, for just covering some things that are going on in the life of our church. Excited to be able to be here with you this morning. We are continuing in the series that we have been in for a number of weeks, looking at Jesus' opening to the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus was a teacher in ancient times. He had an opportunity, because of some of the things that he was doing, to have crowds that were following him around. I don't know about all of you. I don't usually have crowds following me, right? But Jesus, at a certain point in time in his ministry, his public ministry, had a lot of crowds that were around him. And these people wanted to hear from him. They wanted to know what his kind of agenda or his instincts were leading him to kind of teach and point people towards. And so what he ended up doing was he went up on a hillside, which was called a mount, right? It's not overly high or a gigantic hill, but he began to teach. And when he did so, that kind of collection of sayings that he taught was referred to throughout history as the Sermon on the Mount. He opens that sermon, which is kind of his instructions to people on what his rule and his kind of strategy for life looks like. I don't know if any of you have ever played on a sport or played in a sport before and had a certain coach that then transitioned out, and you then had a new coach that come in that you had to learn. In high school, we had 4 different coaches. Every year I was learning a new coach and kind of their new way. Certain coaches, man, they loved me, right? And I really had it, the way I lived, the way I played, like really worked for them. Other coaches, they didn't like the Kyle show. And so I didn't get to play as much. I didn't get, have kind of some of the same things going on. So it was difficult. What Jesus is saying, he's coming along and he's saying, hey, I'm the new big coach, right? And I've got a plan and I've got a way of doing things. And that agenda, right, was actually for him to introduce a very upside down view of a kingdom, okay? And this kingdom is what we've been looking at through these Beatitudes. And what we want to do today is continue looking at the ones that we've read so far, and then eventually get to a point where we're able to talk about the one that we're looking specifically at today, which has to do with mercy. And if in the course of this talk, if the screen is, flickering a little bit or whatever, if you see that, that's totally fine. Doesn't bother me at all. Hopefully you, can handle it as well. Just think of it as little commercials, right, that are, interjecting every once in a while. But where I want to go is Matthew chapter 5. So if you have a Bible, you can pull it up. If not, you can look and check it out. The words are going to be here on the screen. But Matthew chapter 5, I'll pray as you look it up, and then we can dive in together. We also are going to be in the book of Luke in just a little bit as well, and so I encourage you to take a peek there. So let's pray. God, we read your word because we want to hear from you. We read the scriptures because we know that there are things within them that can lead and guide us to life. And so this morning, Lord, we slow down to just be able to listen. And we pray that your spirit and your voice would come through to us because we long to hear from you. This is our prayer, God. We pray it in your name. Amen. So Matthew chapter 5, we've gone over these a number of times. We're going to keep going over them and just encourage you to take a look at it. But Matthew chapter 5 begins by saying this. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. And his disciples came to him. And he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Over the last number of weeks, we've been going over those different Beatitudes, which are just small little phrases, almost kind of like riddles, as we've talked about before. But this one is a little bit unique in the sense that this one has a mirror kind of element to it. Jesus poses this beatitude not where you are blessed on the front end because of one thing, and then there's a different kind of result, right? If you think about the first one, poor in spirit, but theirs is the kingdom of heaven, okay? Those things are unique. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. That's kind of like an opposite or a contrast, okay? Blessed are the meek, right? But they will inherit the earth. Wow, what a prize. On this one, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. It's a mirror image of the start, and that's important because this one also, unlike the other Beatitudes, is talking about relationships between an individual and others. So when you start off and you read, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, nobody else has to be involved in that one. That's just an individual beatitude, right? Same thing for mourn, but then when you get down to merciful, there's a relationship that's kind of assumed. The fact that you can't show mercy just to yourself, right? You have to be merciful to others. And then here it actually states, there's another thing that's assumed. You will be shown mercy. It's such an odd thing to state on the back end because it's assuming that you, at some point in time, will have need. You will have some type of inherent problem that you're going to have someone come alongside of you and support you within. Now, here's the truth about me. When I read this, I like to give charity. I don't like to be charity, okay? I like to be able to be generous. I don't like to have to need generosity, okay? But if you were to flip some of these beatitudes and make them anti-attitudes, right? So something like contrasted to that. Think about it this way. What if Jesus had said this? Blessed are the merciful, for they clearly don't ever have any needs themselves. Okay? That's not what he said. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be looked up to and have a reputation for being really, really strong among all of those that they save. That's not what it says. Blessed are the merciful, for they will find that everyone that they show mercy to automatically receives it and is changed and likes them afterwards. None of those three things, which are speaking specifically to a person's own needs, speaking to the relationship that exists between those who receive mercy and give mercy, and the last part, which is all about the change that actually comes from mercy, none of those are what Jesus is speaking to here. He is not bringing those things up. What he's really pointing to is the idea that there's this really close relationship that exists between giving mercy and receiving mercy. The ability to give mercy is probably being played out here because you can't give what you haven't received. Shakespeare actually has a quote in The Merchant of Venice where he says this: mercy is twice blessed. It is blessing him that gives and him that takes. So it's on both sides. And we want to unpack a little bit more about this kind of dual nature of mercy and why in the world you would have somebody talking about being merciful and receiving mercy and the importance of that. So just story to illustrate is actually from the book of Luke, and it talks about the story of the Good Samaritan. How many of you have heard of the Good Samaritan before? Okay, all right, we're going to read it again. It's not going to be surprising to you, but take a look. This is in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 25. And this is a parable that Jesus told, or kind of an illustration. And we'll set it up and then look at how this has to do with mercy. So, starting there, verse 25. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. He said, "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" And he answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, they beat him, and they went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, poured on oil and wine, and then he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, which were golden coins, and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Now, the very first class that I ever took on the Bible, right? At one point in time, I decided I was going to actually pursue ministry as a career, right? And so I signed up for a Bible class. And in that class, within the first week, we actually looked at this story. And I remember it because my professor, who was a very nice man, a guy who, for some reason, always winked at people during the class, but it wasn't creepy. It was just like he knew something that you didn't, right? So this guy, he was teaching about the Good Samaritan. And he brought up a point, which maybe some of you it's not new knowledge, but for me, it really got to me. He said, "Who do you see yourself as within the story of the Good Samaritan?" And I immediately woke up to the fact that I could have seen myself as different characters within the story. But then what he went on to explain is that within the Western world, most of us view ourselves as the Good Samaritan. And when we hear this story, we think, oh, you know what? I need to be more like the Good Samaritan. Okay? Because that's what Jesus tells the guy to do, like go and do likewise. So I'm always picturing, okay, I'm in a position of power, I'm in a position of resource where if I see people in need, I need to actually cross the road, go over there to them, and in ways that I can, I need to be able to provide mercy. He said what's interesting is that many people in other countries or other parts of the world or in different socioeconomic class will read this story and they will see themselves as the person in the ditch. And when he said that, I just thought to myself, I said, why? Why would you ever want to see yourself as the person in the ditch, right? No, see yourself as the hero. See yourself as the person who has agency and has, ability and the person who can make a choice, right? And then he said, now, do you think that there's any place throughout the world where people will actually see themselves as the priest or the Levite who crossed on the other side? And I sat back and I thought, oh, maybe I'm more like them than even the Samaritan. Maybe I'm the villain, or not the villain, but the one who misses it in this story. That was my first ever Bible class, right? Within the first week, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a rough life, right? Like, just in a week, and, he winks at me, and I'm thinking, what does he know, right? He knew that I had to keep reading the Bible in a way that opened up my world. To be more than just the hero, I had to begin to think about, maybe I actually am all the characters at different points in time. Maybe sometime I'm the man in the ditch. Maybe sometimes I'm the one on the other side of the road. My hope is that God's doing things within my life that I actually would dare to cross the road and help out. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about mercy. Jesus is telling us that there's a relationship between being merciful to others and receiving mercy. I think it's kind of a wheel, where it's very important that we actually know how we've received mercy and we're really aware of it so that we then, on the other side, feel comfortable being able to give it to others when it's needed. But there's a trick that kind of exists within our society, and that is that sometimes we get our mercy and our justice mixed up a little bit. We don't always think about them in the right way. So I want to help just with that a little bit. And here's a way of thinking about it, okay? Do this with me, okay? It's actually a little hand motion, okay? So put your hand out straight in front of you, okay? Justice is getting what you deserve, okay? So if this is the line, this is the standard, then guess what? If you're just, then you've lived up to the standard and you get what you deserve. That's right there. That's justice, okay? Now, mercy is not getting the bad that you deserve. So put another hand out like this, okay? Mercy is when you were supposed to be up here. You were supposed to do certain things, or life was supposed to go a certain way. Instead, the bottom kind of dropped out, and you were right here. And the hammer is about ready to come down on your life. The difficulty, the hurt, maybe the punishment. But it stops right above you. Make it a hammer, okay? Like a fit. Yeah, there you go, okay? It's going to crush you, but it doesn't. That's mercy. You're spared either from punishment or you're spared from hurt, and it holds off. Okay? So that's the bad that should have got to you, but it didn't. Now, keep your hands in play, okay? And then you go up. Oh, right? Yeah, I like this. I got your hands up, okay? This is grace. Grace is when you receive good. You should be down here, or maybe you think that you should be right here, what you deserve, but instead, hands up, you actually receive better than what you deserve. You get the good. You can put your hands down now, right? But you get the good that you don't deserve. That's what our relationship with God is actually like. God looks at us, and He knows what justice is, and He knows that we've fallen short of that justice. But in the midst of that, He offers us mercy, doesn't come down on us, but actually raises us up. And then He doesn't stop there. Jesus actually comes so that we could not just rise back up and get what we deserve, but no, He actually gives us better than what we deserve. That's what Christians are. That's why people should come to church, is because they're like, well, why are you going to church? Oh, because I want to get what I don't deserve, right? I want to go to church to get what I know I don't deserve. That's our relationship with God. And here's the interesting thing about, when I think about this text is that I know what I actually deserve. Sometimes when I'm feeling entitled, or when I'm thinking about my rights, right? When I'm thinking about how hard I've worked, or what I, have earned, then I think about justice and I think, man, I should have more. I should probably have better. I should have probably, a little bit better reputation. But the trick is the fact that when I'm humbled, when I think about this life that I have, the life that all of us get to live, when I think about the fact that in a moment like this, I'm not telling my heart to beat. I'm not consciously keeping my lungs working so that I have oxygen flowing through my brain, right? I'm not guiding my stomach on how to actually break down things. You have to understand, I didn't choose or maintain so many different parts of my life. I didn't bring myself into existence. And my parents, in maybe choosing to have children, they didn't design me. It's not like they went to Build-A-Bear and they were like, okay, we want him to have, blue eyes. Could he be 6 foot? No, you can't do 6 foot. Okay, 5'11" at least, right? Man, I could have got that 6 foot, but I didn't, right? My parents didn't do that. We just received this life. And guess what? Every single day when I wake up, and I breathe, and I can move, and I can think, and I am able to live within the world. Some of us, we experience that in a more positive way than others. But guess what? All of these aspects of life, these mercies, these grace and gifts, I didn't pull this off on my own. It was given to me. And when I sit back in that place, I realize what wonder we all are. And I can sit in that place and be able to say, oh, I don't want to live by what I deserve. I don't want to live just by this idea of like, I should get this, what I should have certain rights, or I should have certain things I'm entitled to. Instead, I look at my life and I'm like, wow, so much of it has just been grace. So much of it has been mercy. I have done some stupid things in my life. I have done some things that could have ended up with me in the ditch. I have people within my life who I grew up with at a younger age, and guess what? Many of them, because of decisions that they've made, but not just decisions that they made, but because we made the same decisions. But I had a net. I had grace or mercy that caught me. I had a parent or a friend or somebody else who came alongside me and was like, whoa, Kyle, what are you doing? People who at times when I really screwed up, like actually reached out to me and helped me figure out a new way forward. Those are the things that saved me. It wasn't the fact that I'm so impressive in and of myself. So I have to watch out that I don't go through life expecting more and living as if I should have, this and that, when really my whole life has been one of mercy and grace. And the meeting of justice within my life was actually accomplished by another. The story that I believe is that God and I were opposed to each other. We were actually enemies of one another. And yet God chose to do something great on my behalf. So in Romans 5, verse 6 through 8, it says this, "You see at just the right time, when we were still powerless, unable to help ourselves, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person." Okay, so they're just acknowledging the fact that even if someone's really awesome, very rarely will someone else die for them. Okay? Though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The passage goes on in just a few verses to use the word enemy. It talks about how we were enemies of God. And yet he chose in mercy not to bring the hammer down on us, but instead to raise us up and allow us to experience lives of grace. Every day that we live is a new mercy. So, you know what you're entitled to? Probably a lot less than what you actually think. But do you know what you've received? Do you know what's available to you? So much. It's profound. It's beautiful. And that's the wonder of mercy. Mercy belongs to those who don't deserve it. Think about that. Our culture is obsessed with who deserves it. They're constantly asking the question, well, does this person deserve it? Or they're trying to figure out, how do I allocate the funds? But I think that's the wrong question. Imagine that you showed up at the ER in the hospital, and immediately when you get there, they say to you, hey, listen, we don't need to check your insurance. We don't need to check your finances. We just want to know, do you deserve this? We need to know what kind of person you are, and then we have some certain standards and other things like that we'd like to measure you on, and then we'll provide care for you. Okay? The question that we often ask ourselves within the world when we see a homeless person on the street corner, or when we're considering maybe somebody in our lives who needs care or support, or when we're even thinking about an enemy within our lives, is we often ask, do they deserve it? And we might think, yeah, I know what they deserve. I hope they get what's coming to them. Or, yeah, I don't owe that person anything. I don't know this person. They don't have any claim on my life. They're not family or anything else. So I don't owe them anything. I don't want to actually even enter into this. And now what I would say to you is, you are right. You don't owe them anything. You don't. They don't deserve anything out of your pocket or necessarily in terms of your care. They don't. So you can just wipe that clean. But guess what? You do owe somebody. If you consider yourself a Christian, then the reason why you get to have that name is because you have received mercy. You are a Christian because Christ has given you something. You are not a Christian because you are pulling it off, because you are so great. The only person who gets to claim that they're a Christian in that way is Jesus Christ, the one who got the name in the first place. All the rest of us, The thing that unites us and brings us together is the fact that we needed mercy. We receive mercy. That's the playing field that we live on. It's level. And so we don't owe the world anything. Okay? They don't deserve it. But guess what? Mercy asks a different question. It doesn't ask, do they deserve it? It asks, what do they need? Because that's the question that God asked of us. He didn't look at Adam and Eve in the garden or look at anybody throughout the history of the Bible that we have and say, well, what do they deserve? Instead, God, again and again and again, Old Testament and New Testament, shows up and says, what do they need? And then he finds ways within himself at great sacrifice to be able to meet those needs. And so there are better questions to ask. Not the question of what do they deserve, but how best can I help? What do they need? How do I come alongside of them? But you will never even think to ask that question unless you've been a recipient of mercy. But once you have received mercy, you think differently about the world. There are people who walk around all throughout this city and other parts of the country, and guess what? They've never received mercy. And so I kind of look at them and I'm like, of course they're just going to go on their merry way, and they're going to ask the question, well, who deserves it, right? How do we allocate funds or time or whatever else, right? And what I hope for them, and I hope for all of us, is that our lives would be defined and marked by mercy. Because guess what? Getting what you deserve, when I think about that, I'm like, why would we settle for just that? When mercy and grace have actually risen my life and yours to greater heights than if I had just gotten what I deserved. If I had just gotten what I deserved, I would be in a ditch somewhere. Because guess what? The man who was beaten up and left there on the side of the road, if he would have gotten what he deserved, he never would have received from the Samaritan. But the Samaritan goes out of his way to be able to give the man what he did not deserve, but what he needed. And he did it profoundly of generosity. And Jesus uses that analogy to ultimately point back to this expert in the law and to be able to say, that's what it looks like to be a neighbor. That's what it looks like to fulfill the commandment. Mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they are aware of the fact that at some point in time in their life, they will need grace. They will need mercy. So what will the reputation of Friends Tustin be? What will our church be known for? Will we be a place where we give to people what they deserve? Or will we be known as a people who are marked by getting better than what we actually deserve? My life is marked by mercy. I know where I would be if I did not have people who did things on my behalf that I hadn't earned. I know what my life would look like if God had not come alongside of me at certain points in time. Because guess what? I narrowly missed flying off the road and getting beat up. And, sometimes I was beat up and somebody picked me up and helped me out. God pursued me. I've received better. And so because of that, we sit and we look out at this city and we don't ask the question, what does this city deserve? We ask this question, what do they need? And there's three different kind of groups of people that we need to think about when it comes to mercy. We need to think about them in terms of relationship so that we can actually practice mercy in the right way. So the first group is those, we'll just refer to them as outcasts, okay? The second group is the offensive, and the last group is the ouch, okay? We'll get to that one, okay? This is important for us because mercy is not something that comes natural to us. Mercy is something I think that we grow in and that we build and we prepare so that it is ready in our pockets. And so that when we're walking alongside the road and we see somebody in the ditch, that there is no chance for us to keep walking and go by on the other side because we're like, wait, I've had this prepared in my pocket, these denarii, right? That I could be able to make them use of. Hey, I've got a donkey. Let's get you helped and let's get you taken care of. We have to practice and prepare because otherwise the claims of this world and of life will gradually pull us over to the other side of the road. We can't live that way if we've been marked by grace. But we need to instead prepare ourselves for mercy. Why do we go once a month to the rescue mission? Because it's an opportunity for us to practice what it looks like and also to remind ourselves of what mercy has been like in our life. And that is just one small area. But the outcast, these are the people who are overlooked. These are the people who have been hurt or broken by life and who ultimately are maybe distant from us, but who are in need, those who are suffering. These are the people who we can practice mercy on, if it's at the rescue mission or if it's in through some other nonprofit organization that exists with right on the front lines, and we partner with them to be able to help out. This could be anybody. This could be maybe young people or old people. This could be anybody in our world who is often overlooked and maybe considered the other, that we don't really want to touch them or reach out to them. We as Christians have to find ways to build bridges of love and care and support to them, and to be creative in doing it, not with the question, what do they deserve, but what do they need? The second group, this is where it gets a little bit harder. These are the people who offend us. These are the people who aren't like us. We actually might even put them into a camp of being our enemy. These are people who we don't like, and we wish that they would be deleted, erased, or removed, right? Because the agenda that they're pushing doesn't really feel like it jives with our own. So this could be political. This could be a member of your family. I like this category because sometimes I just think about it in terms of my kids and how annoying they are. And I'm like, wow, you are deeply offending me and my right to time, right? To have some peace and quiet right now, right? So the offensive are those that bother you. And yet we have to prepare ourselves to be able to offer mercy. Do they deserve it? Do we owe it to them? No. But guess what? We are marked by mercy, and so we will be merciful. We will be gracious. We will be kind. We will ready ourselves when that, other employee says something that, man, just irks us. In that moment, we will dare to have mercy for them and treat them better than they deserve. Not bring the hammer down on them, because in that moment we have the opportunity to truly help them encounter something that they maybe don't even know that they need. And if you're sitting back and you're thinking, well, they've got it wrong and I've got it right, then I'm like, all the more reason for you, hot shot, who has everything figured out, to show the world how much you do by being kind, by being gracious, by being merciful. And then the last group, the ouch group. These are people who hurt you. These are people who, they didn't just offend you, but they betrayed you. They did something in your life that has been very, very painful. In our society, these are the people that you would throw away. These are the people that you would distance yourself from entirely. And yet, within the upside-down kingdom, Jesus actually tells us that these are the people who we need to show love to. These are the people who we actually have to work and prepare mercy for. And that's really tough. I want you to know I have people in my life right now that when I read this, I was like, oh no. I felt like my teacher was winking at me again, right? Just like, I don't want to have to think about what mercy looks like in these people's lives because they hurt me and I'd much rather just get rid of them. And yet I have to. Here's what I've begun to do. I started to write some text messages. I have no intention of sending them right now, right? But I'm just preparing myself for what mercy could look like. Maybe a year from now, I'll finally actually be in a place where I can hit send. But I'm trying to prepare myself for mercy. I'm trying to actually tap into, wait, God, what did you do for me? Convince me, help me realize how much mercy you've actually shown to Kyle Bleeker so that then I might have the ability to do the impossible, which would be to actually forgive and offer mercy and maybe even offer blessing. I can't do it on my own. But God is known as a merciful God. It's part of his character. It's what he's celebrated for and why he's spoken in Exodus all the way through the Psalms and the prophets as a God of mercy. It's because of him that I've got a shot at being able to pull this off. So I talked about how we have to practice this. I've talked a little bit about how we have to prepare ourselves for mercy. And the last part is we just have to pray. God, help me be merciful to those I don't want to be merciful towards. But when we actually live out mercy as a group of people, it does something that the rest of the world doesn't understand. It makes the upside-down kingdom visible, and it forces people to wrestle with the fact that there must be something more to life, because it's not just getting what you deserve. They look around and maybe they're frustrated. They're like, why are you guys treating all each other so kindly, right? Why are you being so good to each other? This one's a loser, and this one's a criminal, and this one's over here. What's going on? And we're all just sitting back and saying, well, we've been marked by mercy. And so a different kind of life is found. Just kind of a little picture to close you with is that the word for mercy in Greek, eleo, is very, very similar to the word for oil in Greek. And that they often are used very closely. So in the story of the Good Samaritan, when the man is hurt and laying on the ground, he applies oil and also wine to him as a way to both disinfect and also to kind of seal or protect this man's wounds. The words are very similar. They have the same root word to them. Now, mercy, like oil, has the ability to smooth. It has the ability to heal. It has the ability to protect. But oil also was something that was used in a lamp as a way to be able to light the way. And so, as a church, my invitation, also my challenge to you, is to press in when it comes to mercy, so that we might be able to bring healing to places that are hurting, to bring help to those who maybe don't deserve it, but who really, really need it, and also that when we have acts of mercy, whether it's like Mother Teresa or whether it is like your grandma, it is a way for us to light a path for the world towards Jesus, because he is the ultimate act of mercy. On the cross, he was mercy incarnate. And because of that, we have a chance not to be crushed, but to actually be lifted up to a life that's better than we even close to deserve. That's the gospel. That's the good news. And I pray that our church has a reputation within this city, not just now, but over the next number of years as being people of mercy. We don't have it all together. Instead, we are known for the fact that we received when we really, really needed it. And that made all the difference. And so we are willing to be merciful to others and be blessed in that because we knew about when we received mercy. I'm going to invite the guys to come up and we'll sing this song, which is Reckless Love, which is about how God has actually pursued us in love even when we didn't deserve it or need it. But I want to pose a little question for you. And this is just kind of a thing to think about. Where in your life do you need mercy? Where in your own life might it be good for you to have mercy really weigh in? Sometimes I think I need God to convict me and remind me of how much mercy I've either received previously or how much mercy I'm currently in need of, right? And maybe to reflect back on all the times that mercy has already saved me. When we do that, it's funny, but my heart already fills up with it, and I'm more ready to give it. I feel prepared to actually be able to share it with others. So think on those questions. When have you received mercy? And how can you prepare yourself to be merciful? And that way we can live into this beatitude that Jesus put in front of us. I'm going to invite Max just to play for about 1 minute as you sit and think, and then we're going to all stand together and we'll sing out this last song. So just reflect on those questions.